What's up? I'm him. And today is April 3rd. Oh, wow. I didn't realize it was the 3rd. I thought it was the 2nd. Yeah, I legit thought it was the 2nd. But that's why I do these streams, I guess. And I start off by saying the date so I can orient myself in time. Today is Thursday, April the 3rd. Oh, okay. But yeah, I said I was going to hop on stream earlier today. So in an effort to be a man of my word, I am here on stream. Whether I talk about anything, I don't know, but I'm here. Yeah. Apparently there are some tariffs that people are, I don't know if everyone cares, but it seems that some people are freaking out about it. You know, I will try to develop an opinion on it. Like, I'm being honest, I really don't give a shit. It's just like, okay, fine. I have not much that I want to buy, and even if I want to buy it, I don't have income to buy it. So it's like, why should I give a shit? But I'm sure there might be some folks who come in and try to convince me that I should care about the things that they care about for whatever reason. I've been watching Bleach all day. That's actually a lot. I've been watching Bleach most of the day. I did some cooking, went to the grocery store, didn't get a chance to do any reading, took a nap, did a little bit of work, walked outside for a little bit, the usual unemployed activities. I'll go ahead and switch over to this other thing, Majig, and y'all can see what I was looking at. I'm looking at how does the bottling process for carbonated water work, and like what are some of the machines that can do it. The reason why is that I am in the middle of a new venture where hopefully I won't share too much about it, but it involves making beverages. So yeah, maybe tariffs will affect me, but some of it will, but some of it won't. Either way, you can see all what's been on my mind, which is stuff like this. Now, I did go through this, the last stream that I did is still up here. And there's some information that came out along, about the tariffs. I haven't read it, so that's probably what I'm going to do is read that. And, I'll maybe develop an opinion from there. And yeah, we'll just see. But honestly, like, it's hard to articulate how little I give a shit about any of it. It's just like, okay, fine. See here, tariffs work. That's an article. I don't know if this is okay. I want to see the actual thingamajig. I'll keep this open for now. So we have news, briefings, and statements. Okay, let's see what's this. Okay, it's definitely not that. Presidential actions. Regulating imports. Okay, so it must be this. Okay, so I think I will be reading this. Before I even get started, I want to say that I like this website. The design is really nice. Is it zoomed in or is that just me? Okay, it's just me. Yeah. This is a really nice site. The fact that all of the, I don't know if it's all of the stuff, but a lot of the actions that have been taken. The fact that I can just come to the website and see it, and maybe that's always been the case. Maybe it's the first time that I'm just seeing this kind of stuff. But I do like how it's organized, and I like the fact that I can see all of the stuff. I was very unaware of what was going on in the previous administration. And although I'm not that much more aware about what's going on in this administration, the fact that I can easily just come in here and kind of see it. Anyway, I'm going to read this and try to develop an opinion on whatever's just happened. Okay. By the authority vested in me as president by the Constitution, the laws of the United States of America, including, I don't know if I care about all this, so I'm just move on. Okay, so I, Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America, find that underlying conditions, including the lack of reciprocity and our bilateral trade relationships, disparate tariff rates and non-tariff barriers, and U.S. trading partners is economic policies that suppress domestic wages and consumption, as indicated by large and persistent annual U.S. good trade deficits, constitute an unusual and extraordinary threat to the national security and economy of the United States. That threat has its source in whole or substantial part outside the United States in the domestic economic policies of key trading partners and structural imbalances in the global trading system. I hereby declare a national emergency with respect to that threat. Okay, so my first thoughts with this preamble is, yes, I can understand the lack of reciprocity. You know, I do get that. With disparate tariff rates, I do understand that. And non-tariff barriers, I would like to know more about what that specifically is. I have my assumptions of what those could be. Specifically, things like it's harder for Americans to go abroad and start businesses or to purchase property, capital, that kind of thing. So maybe it's that, but it's not clear here. Let's see what else. Trading partners, economic policies that suppress domestic wages and consumption. So I'm going to assume that this line right here is talking about currency manipulation. So I know that there is a country, I won't name it, but maybe you can take a guess. There is a country that devalues their currency because they are an export economy, and it's in their best interest to make sure that their currency is devalued in relation to other currencies, especially the U.S. dollar. So maybe that's what that's referring to. Okay, so as indicated by large and persistent annual U.S. goods trade deficit, constitute an unusual and extraordinary threat to the national security and economy of the United States. So this phrase "unusual," I don't know if I really go along with that, and here's why. This has been the case for the past 30 or 40 years. So if something has become the norm, then it cannot be unusual, right? Like unusual is the opposite or the antonym of usual. And in my lifetime, it has been the usual case that other countries have a trade deficit with the United States. Now, there are a bunch of reasons why there could be a trade deficit with the United States. One of the bigger ones is that maybe other countries simply cannot afford our goods. Yeah. So give me a second. Yeah. So maybe other countries simply can't afford our goods. Oh, my computer's on now. I started to stream before I got some other things set up. Let's see, can I SSH into that machine without logging in? Because I remember setting it up, but last time I had to log in, it pissed me off. Shit, okay, yeah, I still do. So I wonder if I need to turn on the SSH agent or something. I don't know. I'll deal with it later. So we'll get some music started right quick. Then I'll return to the task at hand. And go ahead and take a copy video URL. Okay. Okay, so that threat as its as a source in whole or substantial part. Okay, we've already got into that. So he gives the reasons of why he's doing this. All right, fine. Some of this I see where he's coming from. Some of it I'm just like nuance. You know, there's a little bit more that you need to go into, but maybe he is going to go into that, or maybe I'm going to be able to figure out, if there's any more information I can go and find out on the internet. Okay, so on January 20th, that's just there. Okay, I signed the America First Trade Policy Presidential Memorandum directing my administration to investigate the causes of our country's large and persistent annual trade deficits in goods, including the economic and national security implications and risk resulting from such deficits, and to undertake a review of and identify any unfair trade practices by other countries. Okay, so I guess this is what they come up with in what month is this? This is April, in about 2.5 months or so, almost 3 months. I mean, to me, it's kind of obvious what the causes are. As far as I know, America is not a manufacturing economy. We no longer produce goods per se. I mean, we still produce some goods, but for the most part, we don't manufacture a lot of things. We are a service economy. We have a lot of that, and a lot of our services are incredibly expensive. Only richer countries can afford to buy them, and even those richer countries, due to the differences between the U.S. dollar and their currency, it's even more expensive. So I'm not sure if, I don't know, like maybe they're going to get into answering the why. I would like to know what the conclusions of this review are. Anyway, so on February 13th, I signed a presidential memorandum entitled Reciprocal Trade and Tariffs that directed further review of our trading partners' non-reciprocal trading practices and noted the relationship between non-reciprocal practices and the trade deficit. On April 1st, I received the final results of those investigations, and I'm taking action today based on those results. Okay, so, oh man. So my only issue here is you had a day to review it, and if you had a day to review it, only one or two things can happen. Either there wasn't much to review, thereby enabling you to review it, or the other option is you didn't actually review it deeply, right? So it almost feels to me that some of these actions were pre-planned. I don't even know if the review was necessary, right? Like, it seems like the review could just be optics, like, hey, we did some due diligence or whatever, but in my opinion, it feels like I was going to do this anyways. That's kind of what it feels like. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but that's kind of how I feel so far, 2 paragraphs in. So it's not very far, so maybe my opinions will change. Okay, so large, and before I even go on, I'm going to copy this. Oops, that's not how you copy on this computer. And I'm going to throw this in Hemingway. And the reason I want to do this is because his audience is Americans. And if we go and if we go and look to see what the average reading level is of an average American, which by definition is most Americans, I have a strong feeling that this writing is well above 8th grade level, maybe 9th grade, maybe we're in 9th grade. So we're going to put this in Hemingway editor, which is something that I use all the time to make sure that the things that I write are understandable by people who, just who aren't as smart as me. How about that? I'll just put it that way. No, if you go to college and you've been to grad school, then obviously you have a specific way of writing. My default is like a graduate level writing, but I understand that most people don't really understand that well. So I come into here to try to make a lot of my writing approachable, and I normally try to write at a 9th grade level. Sometimes I'll go to a 10th grade level, but I actually put a lot of effort into making sure that my writing is understandable by the vast majority of people. Let's put this in here. Yep, postgraduate. That's what I was thinking. I was just like, this reads like something that I dealt with a lot and I would have to write. So yeah, I am very, very close to what I was thinking. All right, yeah, this is basically what I was thinking, postgraduate level. which is not undergrad. I want to make that clear. Like undergrad and postgrad are two different things. And here's what led me to believe that it's not poorly written. I want to be clear here. It's not poorly written. It's poorly written for the audience, which is the American people, which, as I understand it, which I don't understand it, let's open up ChatGPT and figure out what the average reading level in America is. Wait, what? What's this? Hold on, give me a second. Okay. What is the average reading level of Americans? Copy this URL to the stream right quick. Okay, I was wrong by a lot. I was saying it was ninth grade. Well, I'm not going to lower myself to 7th, 8th grade reading. So I'm going to continue to write at 9th and 10th grade. But the average American adult reads at a 7th to 8th grade level. Additionally, about 54% of adults between ages 16 and 74 lack proficiency in literacy, reading below a 6th grade level. So this is not approachable to the vast majority of Americans. Anyway, that's my point. It's not really anything else. Let me move on. Okay, so large and persistent annual U.S. goods trade deficits have led to the hollowing out of our manufacturing base, inhibited our ability to scale advanced domestic manufacturing capacity, undermined critical supply chains, and rendered our defense industrial base dependent on foreign adversaries. I'm pretty sure that this is 100% due to the COVID situation. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. I know that we've devolved into a 1984 state where certain words are no words, and it will get you censored or banned. But I don't give a fuck anymore. I don't care. It's like I don't have anything to gain from this shit. Anyway, so large and persistent annual U.S. goods trade deficits are caused in substantial part by a lack of reciprocity in our bilateral trade relationships. Okay. This right here is an argument, right? Like, I know that this is presented as if it is a fact, but this, in my opinion, is just a thesis. You know, it's a point. I would need to see some type of substantiating evidence to convince me. Normally, when I see a statement like this where X is because of Y, especially in real life, it's hard for me to just have faith in it. And the reason for that is because there are lots of variables that go into anything beyond theory and textbooks. You know, only in theory and textbooks do you have a situation in which X causes Y, or, you know, like it's a function of that. Normally actual functions have much more variables. In fact, if you're into AI and machine learning and all that other kind of stuff, you get to learn that intimately. Right? Like that's literally what we're doing. We're finding a function, but it's with hundreds of millions or billions of variables, maybe even trillions of variables. So yeah, to just say that, no, it's because of this, I don't know. I have little faith in that argument so far. I need to do taxes too. Shit. All right, so the situation is evidenced by disparate tariff rates and non-tariff barriers that make it harder for U.S. manufacturers to sell their products in foreign markets. I mean, yeah, all right, that's true. It's also evidenced by the economic policies of key U.S. trading partners insofar as they suppress domestic wages and consumption, and thereby demand for U.S. exports, while artificially increasing the competitiveness of their goods in global markets. These conditions have given rise to the national emergency that this order is intended to abate and resolve. So I understand what he's saying here, but maybe I can do a better job of trying to convey that understanding. Um, let's say that it's cheaper to produce a good in another country, which I think we all agree with. That's why most of our companies will go abroad for labor. American labor is expensive, right? So if you are able to, like as a national, like you build your stuff in your country, you're gonna have a lower cost, so you can be more competitive. Now, I don't know if this is artificial, right? That's where I'm at right here. So they say, insofar as they suppress domestic wages and consumption, and thereby demand. So it almost seems like he's making a claim that these foreign countries are reducing wages or making sure that there's a lot of wage pressure so that it never goes up. That's what it almost feels like he's saying. I don't know if that's true, but it may be. I don't know enough, to be honest. So these conditions have given rise to the national. Okay, I've already read that. All right. So for decades, starting in 1934, U.S. trade policy has been organized around the principles of reciprocity. I haven't seen reciprocity in my entire life. I'm just being real. The Congress directed the president to secure reduced reciprocal tariff rates from key trading partners, first through bilateral trade agreements and later under the auspices of the global trading system. Between 1934 and 1945, the executive branch negotiated and signed 32 bilateral reciprocal trade agreements designed to lower tariff rates on a reciprocal basis. After 1947 through 1994, participating countries engaged in 8 rounds of negotiation, which resulted in general agreements on tariffs and trade. Oh, that's where GATT came from. Okay. And several subsequent tariff reduction rounds. So I think that it's worth pointing out that there was a very significant event going on during this time. So between 1934 and 1945, not only did we have the Great Depression, but we also had the start and conclusion. I forget when the World War II ended, but World War II and the Great Depression were going on during this time. In addition to that, there was also some things happening in Europe, some fairly bad things. And there are also some things happening in Japan, not Japan, well, Japan too, but not really, mostly Germany that we focus on. Obviously Japan, they were doing some things. They were doing their imperialist thing. After we kind of woke them up, after we kind of went to their country and basically said, hey, either you're going to trade with us or you're going to see this work. That's kind of what it went down like. That's a short summary of it. But yeah, like in Germany, there was this thing going on. The Great Depression was bad here, but it was worse in Germany. And there was also some other things that, Germany was going through. I know that we always like to say that, oh, Germany is like devil, hell, enemy, all that other kind of BS. But let's be real, like things were going on in Germany that were really, 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 really bad, which led to some other things that may be really, 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 really bad happening. So I think that there was a lot of political will to make these types of things happen. And there was a lot of leverage that we here in America, even though we were going through a Great Depression, mainly caused by our own oligarchs' own doing, as it relates to markets, right? This is when the futures, I don't know if y'all are aware of this, but futures were a relatively new concept right before the Great Depression, like in 1900s, leading up to the Great Depression. A future is basically a contract that allows you to buy a commodity or some type of good at a price today, and it'll be delivered to you in the future. And this is really, really good in societies like ours at that time, where you have a bunch of farmers who are producing goods like wheat or cotton or tobacco or anything, right? Where it's seasonal and they don't necessarily know what that yield is going to be like, but they need to have money up front to do all the planning. They basically need money to support the operation to eventually deliver that good. Futures were for that. I want to say it was around this time that we got the Chicago, I forget who they are, but it's the Chicago Stock Market Exchange. But whoever their name is, I forget. That's basically what got us into trouble during the Great Depression. A bunch of people were dumping money into the market like crazy. and it was just going up until it didn't continue to go up. We had a I forget what it was called, but I read a book called The Grapes of Wrath when I was a kid, and it describes the Dust Bowl, like Central America, not Central America, but like the central part of America, and what was going on, specifically a drought, where there was no productivity when it came to farming. So a lot of those futures and a lot of people just basically just lost everything. And people were going hungry and all kinds of things. The Great Migration happened during this time. So there was a lot of things going on during this time, which I think is worth noting. Right? Like, it's one thing to just see a date. It's another thing to actually understand what was going on during that time. Now, if y'all didn't know that these things were going on, then shame on your education system, because like if you don't know the past, which I know a lot of people think that it doesn't matter, but I don't know, I think it matters. Anyway, I'll move on. So, however, despite a commitment to the principle of reciprocity, the trading relationship between the United States and its trading partners has become highly unbalanced, particularly in recent years. The post-war international economic system was based upon 3 incorrect assumptions. Oh, okay. First, that if the United States led the world in liberalizing tariff and non-tariff barriers, the rest of the world will follow. Second, that such liberalization I did say that right. Liberalization will ultimately result in more economic convergence and increased domestic consumption among U.S. trading partners converging towards a share in the United States. And third, that as a result, the United States will not accrue large and persistent good trade deficits. So, yeah, I can see how those have not held up. And it seems like we made that mistake again. We let a certain country into the WTO. We sponsored a certain country's entrance into the WTO with this idea that if we, basically like help them become even wealthier, then their economy and the way it's been structured would align closer to ours. And that didn't happen. So it almost seems like people who only care about money assume that everyone else only cares about money. That's kind of the sense that I'm getting from this. As someone who comes from a different cultural background than the typical American, it kind of feels the same thing, where it's just like, oh, you all think we care about the same shit. And I do know that in most circumstances, most people do, but that's not everyone. And that's going to be a mistake that a lot of people make, assuming that everyone is like you. Anyway, let's keep going. This framework set in motion events, agreements, and commitments that did not result in reciprocity or generally increase domestic consumption in foreign economies relative to domestic consumption in the United States. Those events, in turn, created large and persistent annual U.S. goods trade deficits as a feature of the global trading system. And again, right? Like, America has a consumption-driven culture, and that's the key right there. Not every culture believes or feels the need to consume things other than necessities. And believe it or not, most necessities can be grown from the earth where you live. You don't have to get it from here, right? Not everyone feels the need to have an iPhone every year. That's mostly an American thing. So it makes sense that that would be the case, because not every culture values the same things equally. And I would argue that valuing material goods to the point to where you're going to build your economy on it is kind of shallow. A little shallow. It doesn't hold, because what happens when the culture changes, which it will. It seems to be doing that right now. You have people like me who are just like saying, like, why should I continue to buy anything? What for what? It doesn't make me happier. At least, I don't know, maybe it makes you happier. I've had the privilege of buying more things than most people. Like, I've had supercars, so it's just like, okay, yeah, they go fast. Great. I have really awesome technology, and it's like, yeah, they're cool, but okay, great. Yo, what's up, yo, Woo? How you doing? I had a suspicion that people in Asia would find this one, because it's kind of late for me, at least. It's 11 here. Well, that's not my, I don't know, like this thing about make America great again. I don't know if America has truly ever been great for the majority of Americans. Now, we did have a really good period of time where it was amazing. We call it the Roaring 20s. However, most people didn't take part in that. But a lot of things did happen, right? Like this is when we got jazz, which, you know, or blues, or all the other like cultural things, especially from our culture, a lot of that came during that time. You know, so I'm a big believer that a lot of cultural expression comes from tumultuous times. So it's during these times when, you know, different forms of creation, or not, well, creation too, but expression come about, right? We saw it in the 80s, 70s, you know, with birth of rap, right? There were a bunch of things happening specifically to my community that resulted in these things. Same with blues, right? So it's like, yeah. But I'm not against making America great. You know, I think that it's the duty of every citizen of every nation to want their nation to be great. Now, I don't mean to say that the nation is the state, because I have the opinion of fuck the state. However, that being said, the nation, which is the people, the citizens of the country who share similar values and common goals and interests and all that kind of stuff, I think that it's incumbent on us to want to be great. Because if we are great, then that means that we all benefit, right? Even the other countries who aren't a part of us, like they can also stand to benefit if we are great. And the same for them. I want other countries to be great too. To me, it doesn't make any sense to say, you know what, I want this country to be great, and then I want every other country around me to be trash. To me, that's stupid. That's silly. It doesn't make sense. It's equivalent to wanting to be rich and then everyone around you is poor. It's not a great environment to live in. You know, like I'm experiencing that now here in America as we get objectively poor, where I'm noticing the deteriorating living standards around me, and I don't like it. No, I don't like that it's dirty and that there's people on drugs on the street. I fucking hate that shit. I don't like it. Does it help that I have money when I have to walk through all that shit? No, it doesn't. So anyway, let's keep moving. Let's keep reading. I think we're here now. Okay. Oh, no, we're not here. I'm here. Okay. I'll try to do the scrolling thing. Okay. So put simply, while World Trade Organization members agreed to bind their tariff rates on a most favored nation basis, and oh, by the way, there is a country, and Yowu, this one's for you. This is one of the things that your country has been able to take advantage of, the most favored nation status, or developing nation status. So like there are certain things or benefits that you all get that other countries don't get. A good example is you all can ship things here to America for an insanely cheap price. Seriously, it's actually kind of insane. I can have things sent from overseas in China to my house for cheaper than someone in Los Angeles or in New York, which are two American cities, can send things to me. It's kind of interesting. It's very interesting, actually, but it doesn't go the opposite way. Same with goods that are shipped here. It's much cheaper to ship goods here from a lot of other countries than it is for us to ship them back. A good example is, let's say a part that I ordered for my motorcycle comes from Italy. It costs them maybe 40, 50 bucks to send it to me. If I want to send it back to Italy, $600. That should put it in perspective. How much more it is. All right, anyway, let's keep going. And thereby provide their basic tariff rates to all WTO members. They did not agree to bind their tariff rates at similarly low levels or to apply tariff rates on a reciprocal basis. Consequently, according to the WTO, United States has among the lowest simple average MFN tariff rates in the world at 3.3%. While many of our key trading partners like Brazil are 11.2%, China 7.5%, the EU 5%, India 17%, god dang, and Vietnam 9.4% have simple average MFN tariff rates that are slightly higher. Again, I'll trust it right now at face value, but I don't normally like to trust things like this at face value. Okay, moreover, these average MFN tariff rates conceal much larger discrepancies across economies and tariff rates applied to particular products. For example, the United States imposes a 2.5% tariff on passenger vehicle imports with ICE engines, while European Union 10%. That's true. I did validate that 2 days ago. And when I say validate, I was actually just trying to figure out what do they charge, and it's 10%. And that's a minimum, right? That's the bar or the threshold. I'm gonna say that, yeah, that's where it starts. It goes up from there actually. India 70%. Oh gosh, they must be getting them cars from Russia. I don't know, man, that's a lot. 70%. And China 15% impose much higher duties on the same product. For network switches and routers, the United States imposes a 0% tariff, but for similar products, India 10% levies a higher rate. Brazil 18% and Indonesia 30% impose a higher tariff on ethanol than does the United States. All right, we're switching here, right? Like, if you're going to give me these examples up here for ICE engines, give me the same examples for switches and routers, right? Like, give me the same examples. Don't just say, all right, well, India does 10%. Well, what about everyone else? And why do we care if it's a 10% tariff on routers? Because let's just be real. Let's just be real. India as a nation, do they need routers or do they need other things more? And that's kind of my issue with these tariffs right now, is that, you know, not every country needs the same things. And we only produce like very high level type thing, like things that most countries that don't have a certain amount of wealth, they just don't need it. And they would never be able to consume the amount that we consume here in America. Anyway, so Brazil is at 18%, Indonesia 30%, and this is impose a higher tariff on ethanol than does the United States at 2.5%. For rice in the husk, the U.S. MFN tariff is 2.7%, ad valorem equivalent. While India, so this is an equivalent. I don't know if this tells me that maybe some shiftiness is happening here, and I don't know. We're gonna have to look at that. While India 80%, Malaysia 40%, and Turkey, I love this. This is kind of a it's kind of a slight. I'm here for it. I don't give a shit. But like Turkey, not long ago they changed their name to Turkey. However the hell you say it, Turkey. I think that's how you say it, Turkey. So there's like a E and there's an umlaut or something like that somewhere. It's not Turkey anymore. I don't care, but I still call it Turkey. But it's just funny that in our like official government stuff, like they're not even using their real name, but that's fine. It's America, I guess. All right, and impose higher rates. Apples into United States duty free, but not so in Turkey. 60.3% and India 50%. Oh. Well, I will say that rice in the husk, even if other countries don't charge a tariff, it's still expensive. I bought some rice the other day. Let me pull this up right quick. Let me pull this up. Gosh, what's the name of this farm? Maybe it'll pop up because I went to it not long ago. Carolina Gold. Just to show how expensive rice is here. Oh, is it Anson Mills? No, it's not Anson Mills. Martian, this one. Okay. So let's take a look at how much this rice costs. This is 1.5 pounds of rice for $12. Let me say that again. It's 1.5 pounds. Just not even the kilograms for my people who aren't based in here in America and don't use the imperial system. Y'all use the other one. This is 1.5. Wait, hold on. No, it's 0.7 kilograms or something like that. 0.75 kilograms. I'm not doing this math right. I'm gonna get the real one. Let's just copy it. We'll say just do it here. I was off. It's 0.68 kilograms. I was close enough though. All right, so it's 0.68 kilograms and it costs $12 US. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that most countries are not going to import this. This is way too much money. It's way too much money. The only way that countries would want to import our goods is if they became cheaper. And the only way they become cheaper is, well, there are two ways. Either corporations, which have captured our government, either they take less profit, but we know who owns them. They love money. They would never do that. So it's going to have to come from the people who work at those corporations, which is reduced wages. That's the only way I see that happening. But no, maybe not. Maybe, you know, they'll become good people. And I doubt it. Come on, why do they keep doing that? All right. Similarly, non-tariff barriers also deprive U.S. manufacturers of reciprocal access to markets around the world. That is true. That's very true, and I experienced that myself. The 2025 National Trade Estimate Report on Foreign Trade Barriers details a great number of non-tariff barriers to U.S. exports around the world on a trading partner by trading partner basis. These barriers include import barriers and licensing restrictions, customs barriers and shortcomings and trade facilitation, technical barriers to trade, e.g. unnecessarily trade restrictive standards, conformity assessment procedures, or technical regulations. I have a problem with this right here. Right. And here's why. We have the same thing here in America. You know, I'm not saying we shouldn't. Like I like the fact that we have things like the FDA or the FDA. Who else? Who is the other one? I'm gonna just use the FDA. FCC too. Like I appreciate the fact that we do have certain standards and things that need to be met before you can bring products here. And that's hard. Those are technical trade barriers. Hell, they're barriers to people here in America. Another word for barrier is cost. That's how I look at it. Like every barrier, like if you want to get around it, it's going to cost you time and money. And that's the same here. And a lot of these barriers that we have to new market entrants here in America are put in place by not necessarily our government or, you know, the people who we elect into our government, but by people who are beholden to corporations, lobbyists. It's the same thing. Anyway, I'll move on. Sanitary and phytosanitary measures that unnecessarily restrict trade without furthering safety objectives. Inadequate patent, copyright, trade secret. Oh, I know who that's talking about. Yeah. IP essentially. Inadequate patent, copyright, trade secret, and trademark regimes, and inadequate enforcement of intellectual property rights. This is actually America's bread and butter. This is the primary thing that we export and that other countries consume is IP. And yes, that is true. Like there are inadequate protections for IP. However, you can't say this right here while at the same time supporting a project called Stargate, which is basically taking the intellectual property of people like me and then using that for commercial purposes to then reduce wages. That's what AI is doing. Like with a lot of these LLMs being trained right now, this is literally what they're doing. This is the pot calling the kettle black, in my opinion. Anyway, discriminatory licensing requirements or regulatory standards, barriers to cross-border data flows, and discriminatory practices affecting trade and digital products, investment barriers, subsidies, anti-competitive practices, discrimination in favor of domestic state-owned enterprises, and failures by governments in protecting labor and environment standards, bribery and corruption. So We use bribery and corruption to get our way around the world. It happens all the time when we support different regimes that are against another regime that doesn't have America's best interest in mind. They may have their own country's best interest in mind. So we do the same thing, and we leverage that. So like I'm not saying that I don't want that to stop, right? I do want it to stop, but I don't think that is going to stop. This almost feels like, oh, we're pointing out things that other countries are doing, but meanwhile, we take advantage of the same things here. Discrimination in favor of domestic state-owned enterprises. I don't personally see a problem with this. If you go to someone else's home and they don't believe in private enterprise the same way that you believe in private enterprise, so be it. Here's a fun fact about me. Even though I'm all for free markets and all this kind of stuff, I do not necessarily believe, I don't believe that private enterprise is necessarily better. In fact, a lot of the times, I think that they are somewhat worse. All it takes is to call your internet service provider. See how that goes. That's a private enterprise. It's not so great, is it? Or hell, try to get customer service with anything. Like try to get customer service with your Tesla. See how that goes. I am not watching the new Bleach episodes. I'm not into new shit in general. I don't know, like all things new in my opinion are trash. But maybe, what do you mean by new? Are you talking about like after the original canon, or are you talking about recently? I guess it could be better. Well, no, I don't know. Japan has been captured too in some ways. Anyway, let's see. Investment in failures for government. Okay, all right. I've already read this. Okay, so moreover, non-tariff barriers include the domestic economic policies and practices of our trading partners, including currency practices and value-added taxes. Yeah, I know that. Okay. And their associated market distortions that suppress domestic consumption and boost exports to the United States. This lack of reciprocity is apparent in the fact that the share of consumption to GDP in the United States is about 68%, which is much lower than others like Ireland. Is Ireland a country? I'm sorry if it is. I thought Ireland was part of the UK. Maybe not. I don't know that area. Singapore, 31%. I have a lot. China, 39%, South Korea, 49%, and Germany at 50%. Hold on, let me read this. I don't know if I understand. This lack of reciprocity is apparent in the fact that the share of consumption to GDP in the United States is about 68%. So the ratio is consumption to GDP. Well, what he's saying is that we are a consumption-driven economy. I happen to know that in Singapore, and very much like China, they don't consume like we do. Some of them do, the ones who are middle class, but that's very few. In fact, I would say most of that consumption is driven by ultra wealthy and middle class. Specifically ultra wealthy. They're probably driving most of that consumption. If you're in a country like Singapore, chances are you're more concerned about purchasing a home. In fact, there's CNA is doing a whole special about them. Maybe I should watch that live. At the same time, efforts by the USA to address these imbalances have stalled. Trading partners have repeatedly blocked multilateral and plurilateral solutions, including the context of new rounds of tariff negotiations and efforts to discipline non-tariff barriers. At the same time, with the U.S. economy disproportionately open to imports, U.S. trading partners have had few incentives to provide reciprocal treatment to U.S. exports in the context of bilateral trade negotiations. These structural asymmetries have driven a large and persistent annual U.S. goods trade deficit, even for countries with which the United States may enjoy an occasional bilateral trade surplus. The accumulation of tariff and non-tariff barriers on U.S. exports may make that surplus smaller than it would have been without such barriers. Permitting these asymmetries to continue is not sustainable in today's economic and geopolitical environment because of the effect they have on U.S. domestic production. A nation's ability to produce domestically is the bedrock of its national economic security. So I can't point the finger at Trump for this. I can point the finger at previous administrations who essentially sold out my generation and the generation after me and the generation after them, not giving a shit about this. They hollowed out all of our production capability and sent it abroad into East Asia. Not just China. You know, it started out with the tiger economies, you know, like Korea, South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, and Singapore. Right? Like we shipped off all our stuff there. And when I say we, I mean our previous administration. So I'm not saying that like he's wrong. That's why I say I can't point the finger at him. However, you know, this is one of the flaws, I think, of our form of government. It's that it changes every 4 to 8 years. There's no continuity. None. You know, every administration, they have their own interests, their own vested interests, but honestly, it's not even the administration. It's the fact that we have government capture essentially by corporations. And I do understand that this country was founded on the basis of mercantilism. I understand that. So it's kind of like it was built on that. So for the most part, it's not really a flaw. It's a feature if you are a business owner, which is probably one reason why you should, own businesses and seek to grow as large as possible, because that's when you really get the benefits of the American system conferred upon you. Is Canada ending 1,000-year war? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what you mean by 1,000-year war. Both my first administration in 2017 and the Biden administration in 2022 recognized increasing domestic manufacturing is critical to U.S. national security. Well, yeah, that's because we had COVID and we realized that, oh, we can't even make masks here. Yeah, it's kind of funny when you think about it. According to 2023 United Nations data, U.S. manufacturing output as a share of global manufacturing output was 17.5%, down from a peak in 2001 of 28, basically a third, almost a third. Over time, the persistent decline in U.S. manufacturing output has reduced U.S. manufacturing capacity. The need to maintain robust and resilient domestic manufacturing capacity is particularly acute in certain advanced industrial sectors like automobiles, shipbuilding, and pharmaceuticals. Do we even build ships here in America? Have we, like, seriously? We don't even, for a country like ours, which is so reliant on oceans to project power, aka our Navy, the fact that we can't build ships is asinine. And that's been the case for a long time. And it seems that people don't give a shit, you know, which is, you know, it's just like people who only love money. They're short-term thinking, man. That they just think short-term. Like they get all this money and don't realize that if they don't have people who are willing to die for them to have all that money, well, they're going to die. Because like, who's going to protect you? You know, you need things to protect you. Maybe that's what they're doing AI for. Maybe they think that's going to work. Where did I leave off? Let's see. All right, I think I left off here. So shipbuilding, pharmaceuticals, technology products, machine tools, and basic and fabricated metals. Because once competitors gain sufficient global market share in these sectors, U.S. production could be permanently weakened. I think we've already gotten to that point. We've already gotten there. It's also critical to scale manufacturing capacity in the defense industrial sector so that we can manufacture the defense material. Is this a typo? Maybe I don't know how to spell material. Okay, I don't know how to spell material. Okay. How have I been spelling material all this time? Oh, okay. All right, so I'm falling victim. It's sometimes confused with material. So material is military, materials. I'm saying owls to emphasize the A. Okay, all right. All right, I just learned something. I didn't know that. Bleach Thousand Year War is a manga in it. Nah, I don't know. I don't know about that. I'm not on Bleach right now, though. I'm trying to get to these tariff things. I can't watch Bleach on stream, so it's like. It's also critical. I think I've already read that. All right, here we are. So I'm here. So, in fact, because the United States has supplied so much military equipment to other countries, U.S. stockpiles of military goods are too low to be compatible with U.S. national security, national defense interests. Well, yes. However, yeah. I mean, that did happen. No, the AI podcast doesn't read. It like talks about. And no, I refuse to give up my ability to read. I spent a lot of effort in my younger years to learn how to read and to learn how to comprehend and to learn how to think critically. I will not outsource that to some machine. I will continue to do that myself. So yes, I'm willing to give it to the podcasting after the fact to see what it has to, how it talks about it. But no, I'm not willing to just give that up. I want to know what he has to say. It's kind of the same thing with I don't trust the media. Why the fuck should I delegate or defer my understanding or my knowledge of what's going on to these other people when I have that capability within myself? Now, I'm not saying, other people aren't that same way. Other people, they're fine to just delegate that shit off to other things and other people. I'm not. And I'm also thinking that because I'm reading this, people who are unwilling to read it, which I'm going to assume is most people, at least they can just listen to me read it, Although I'm not reading it from start to finish. I'm obviously interjecting and all that kind of stuff. But what I will say is that I have it on the screen. So if I mess up something or if I skip over something, people will see it. And yeah, you can basically keep me honest. Make sure that I'm not out here just telling y'all some bullshit. And here it is. It's not in black and white, but it's in close enough black and white. The tariffs are like reciprocal, but at most are equal to tariffs already put on us. In some ways, yes. In some ways, yes. And this is what I'll be doing later, I suppose, is trying to get into a more nuanced conversation around that. Because yes, that's true. However, it's not what it seems. It's not what it seems for everyone. You got to be more nuanced. You see the charts, our tariffs are mostly lower. Again, it's same argument as I had before. Yes and no. Than what we already been charged. And it's important to make sure that we understand what a tariff is. And I'm not picking on you, but when you say then what we are already being charged, it's important to understand that a tariff is not another country charging us Americans. It's not that. It's that country charging the importers of that good or service to import it into the country. So people in that country will have to pay it. Just like here in America. These tariffs aren't, we're going to charge Singapore 10% to send stuff here. No, it's whoever here in America is importing goods from Singapore. They want to continue to do that instead of using American manufacturing, whatever, like American equivalent, if there is one, they have to pay an additional 10%. Right. So it's effectively a tax that importers have to pay. Now, due to how things are and what's allowed in our country, they do pass that cost to regular everyday Americans. But I think that is important to make sure we don't lose that distinction, because once you lose that distinction, it's really easy to fall into the trap, which is what I see a lot of U.S. media saying, which is, oh, you're just increasing the prices for American consumers. Yes, that is a side effect, but it doesn't have to be a side effect. The importers could eat that cost. So you see what I mean? Like the importer, who I'm not saying all of them can, but some of these people are charging a shit ton of money for things that are stupidly cheap. Think about a shirt that you buy for $100 here in America that it costs a few cents to make in Indonesia, and it costs maybe a couple dollars to get it shipped here. So by the time the importer, you know, like the retailer, they purchased it, they maybe paid $5 to $6 for that shirt, and then they turn around and sell it to you for $100. That's margin, right? Yes, there's jobs, there's all these other things that are tied up in that, but let's be real. Like if you have that much margin, you probably have enough margin to just eat that cost and not just pass it on to the consumer. Now I understand that that's what they're going to do, right? Because you know, we have laws that if you're a publicly traded company, it's your fiduciary responsibility to make responsibility to make as much money as possible, and that's the best way to do it. You know, pass all costs on to your consumer, but it doesn't have to be that way. So I want to be clear, like we can't just absolve middlemen of all blame, which is what it seems that a lot of corporate media outlets are doing, which makes sense because they are corporations and they are beholden to other corporations, and they want to maintain the status quo, which is have people like us not see them as one of the main issues and instead say, oh no, it's their fault. It's common divide and conquer. And it's not divide and conquer. I'm sorry. It's misplaced blame. Some people are easily fallible. I'm not. Like I see through that bullshit. Sure. Yeah. It increased the cost of doing business. Sure. But that doesn't mean that it has to increase the cost of, you know, your goods. It doesn't mean that there's no rule of nature that says that it has to be that way. That's what I'm trying to get you to see. Now, I do understand it may be hard for you to accept that because a lot of Americans, for whatever reason, they've never left. So they don't understand that, no, the world doesn't have to operate the way that the world operates here in America. All right, that's the thing. You got to unprogram yourself from that. No, there are some places where profit is not the primary motivator. You know, sometimes it's just, hey, like we are fulfilling this need. We need to have this. We don't have to make so much money. You know, so long as we make enough. What I'm trying to say is that there are some cultures and some countries where greed isn't the primary motivator. And I think that under our version of capitalism, it exploits human greed. And it assumes that all humans are greedy, which, you know, most maybe are, but I don't think that's true for all, especially in different cultures. Anyway, let me keep going. I don't think I've finished reading this. So in fact, because the US has supplied so much military equipment to other countries, our stockpiles of military goods are too low to be compatible with US national defense interests. Furthermore, US defense companies must develop new advanced manufacturing technologies across a range of critical sectors, including biomanufacturing, batteries, and microelectronics. This seems like a giveaway of what a future war is going to look like. Maybe I shouldn't see that right now. Maybe I shouldn't look that far right now, but I'll keep reading. The U.S. wishes to maintain an effective security umbrella to defend its citizens and homeland, as well as for its allies and partners. It needs to have a large upstream manufacturing and goods producing ecosystem to manufacture these products without undue reliance on imports for key inputs. I have a feeling I know what key imports these are, and I think I understand why this paragraph is here. If we are indeed meant to go into a hot war with certain countries by 2030, not what I'm saying, this is what some of these other countries are saying, that they're going to do certain things by 2030. It makes sense that if America, the state, if it wants to do something about it, you might need to be able to manufacture your own shit and not rely on the country that you're going to be trying to fight to keep sending you the shit. No, I don't think that's going to happen. Increased reliance on foreign producers for goods also has compromised U.S. economic security by rendering U.S. supply chains vulnerable to geopolitical disruption and supply shocks. In recent years, the vulnerability of the U.S. economy in this respect was exposed both during the COVID-19 pandemic, when Americans had difficulty accessing essential products, or I'm sorry, this is accessing, not assessing, accessing essential products, as well as when the Houthi rebels later began attacking cargo ships in the Middle East. Well, I feel like we're given a sheep right here to blame, but there's more than this. There was also the backup that happened in the Suez Canal when one of the ships somehow got stuck. So it's more than just the Houthi rebels. There are all kinds of things that can happen. There could be a monsoon that happens somewhere that causes shipments to get delayed. There's all kinds of things, right? Not just that. The decline of U.S. manufacturing capacity threatens the U.S. economy in other ways, including through the loss of manufacturing jobs. Well, that's been happening since I've been born. And the thing about losing these types of jobs is you don't just tomorrow open the factory and then all their jobs. Who has the skill set to fill these positions? Not even that. Who has the desire to do that? That's going to require the group of people who've been vilified and alienated for the past 35 to 40 years to want to take part in that, because let's be real, the group who's been doing that alienation, they're unwilling to do it. They like to say they can do these things, but in reality, they only do the things that are easy. So it's like, who's going to do these jobs? I don't know. It's going to take years to train people to be able to do these jobs. And we started our training here in America at an early age. I started my training when I was 4 years old. And it continued until I was 24, 25 years old. So that tells me that you need about a generation, 20 years to train people to be able to come into these types of jobs and actually excel in them. It takes a while. It takes a long time. There's not just going to be this, oh yeah, we brought it back. It don't work that way. And in fact, we have these corporations, the capital owners. I'm gonna stop saying corporation. I'll call it capital owning class. They are currently working on robots and artificial intelligence to do this. So where's the incentive? From 1997 to 2024, the United States lost around 5 million manufacturing jobs and experienced one of the largest drops in manufacturing employment in history. Furthermore, many manufacturing job losses were concentrated in specific geographical areas like the Rust Belt specifically. In these areas, the loss of manufacturing jobs contributed to the decline in rates of family formation and the rise of other social trends, like the abuse of opioids that have imposed profound costs on the U.S. economy. Yes, it did. All right, I don't have a problem with this sentence. It did. It said the word contributed. Okay. I'm thinking of some other things that have also contributed to the decline rates and family formation. I don't think it's all about jobs. I think it has a lot to do with some other things that have been going on since around the 70s. If you know what that movement is, feel free to say it in the chat. All right, let me come back to the comments. There seems to be a situation in Iran brewing. Yeah, I mean it's been brewing for years actually, for a long time. I'm assuming that maybe the media is just now talking about it, so now you're aware of it. But things have been going on there for a long time. It's never not been brewing. I'll say it that way. It just goes quiet every so often. But if you ever go out to that region, you'll hear a lot more about what's going on there and what Iran used to be like before BP and America, basically Britain and America, got involved and toppled their democratically elected leadership because he wanted to nationalize their oil. So like, certain companies, and we go back to corporations, they weren't willing to allow that. So, cool. And ever since then, we've had an Iran problem. See how that works? If I showed you pictures or even videos from what that region of Earth used to be like before that revolution, we call it revolution, before those events took place, you would not believe it. It was very much like here. Very much. It's actually kind of insane when you see it. You're like, wait, this is Iran, this is Afghanistan, and it's like, yeah, it's like that. But that history gets lost. We don't talk about that. We only talk about how evil they are. We don't really talk about like what their history is like. Fortunately, I've been to the region and I have friends who are from that region and who still live in that region. So I've had plenty of opportunity and a lot of motivation to understand and learn more about what's going on in that region. It's not just that region either. There are other regions like in Africa or in Asia. You know, when you start to care about what's going on in the world, you realize there's a lot of similarity. There are a lot of things that repeat. And then you start to, at least I do, I look at it at a higher level and understand that, oh, there's certain interests or certain groups that push certain things for their benefit. We don't want their nuclear stuff progressing. Well, that's fine. We don't have to want it, but I'm of the opinion that it's their prerogative. You know, like nuclear can be a source of energy. I do understand that it could also be a weapon. However, I don't think that it's our place to say what another country will do. And I think when you push a country to say, oh, you can't have this, they're only going to push harder. And we see what's happening to Ukraine. If Ukraine hadn't given up their nuclear weapons after the USSR fell, I doubt that Russia would have invaded. Now, their leadership is basically coming over here to kiss the literal rectum of our president so that he can get money, so that he can defend himself and his country. I'm pretty sure if they would have maintained their stockpile, because most of the weapons of USSR were there in Ukraine, I'm very positive that if they still had a fraction of those weapons, there wouldn't have been an invasion. There would be no need for the quote unquote West to have to be involved and protect them. And other countries saw this. India saw this. You know, China understood this. Notice that we've never been to North Korea. Like, they seem to understand this. Russia, they never gave up their shit. And so it's like, notice how we've never been to Russia? They seem to understand it. France understood it. Israel understood it. So many countries have understood this fact. So, you know, I'm here. Who am I to say, oh, you shouldn't have these weapons? Maybe they should have those weapons. Maybe they'll be treated a little bit differently. Because I noticed that strong countries treat weaker countries really poorly. They treat you however they feel like they can get away with. So level the playing field. If we really want fairness, right? Like, I know that's a term that everybody's saying these days. We want equality. We want fairness. Yeah, okay, well, as fair is fair, right? My city's warehouses are all condos and apartments now. Where are you from again, I know you, wait, I don't know. Are you in Florida? I don't know. Remind me where you're from. I don't remember. All right, let's keep going. The future of American competitiveness depends on reversing these trends. Today, manufacturing represents just 11% of US GDP, yet it accounts for 35% of American productivity growth and 60% of our exports. Importantly, US manufacturing is the main engine of innovation in the United States, responsible for 55% of all patents and 70% of all research and development spending. The fact that R&D expenditures by US multinational enterprises in China grew at an average rate of 13.6% a year between 2003 and 2017, while their R&D expenditures in the US grew by an average of just 5% per year during the same time period, is evidence of the strong link between manufacturing and innovation. Furthermore, every manufacturing job spurs 7 to 12 new jobs and other related industries, helping to build and sustain our economy. So this figure right here, this 13%, 13.6%, this is actually, hold on, give me a second. Let me pull over ChatGPT, because I think that I don't know like how like mathematically minded y'all are. Like, do y'all visualize these things? But this 13.6% year over year for, I don't know, like 14 years, this is quite substantial. So this is compound growth. Show a graph or produce a graph showing 13.6% year-over-year growth. Maybe I should say chart. Yeah, sure. You'll notice that it's not going to grow linearly. And if it does, then we'll have to figure out why it's wrong. Yeah, see? It doesn't grow linearly. See, it's got a curve. It's parabolic. Notice that? So that's actually a lot. That's a lot. Give me the function for this graph. See if we can do that. There we go. So I don't know if y'all remember the, gosh, what's that formula? I forget what it is. I don't know the name of the formula, but it's basically, I know it from like the time value of money or for the exponentiation or whatever. That if you want to figure out something, you take whatever that thing is, times, raise it up to the t's power. So it's like whatever the thing is times this, times that, and you do it over and over and over again. That's what this is. It's compound growth. I think that's what the name of it is. Is this compound growth? Say if so, give me general form. Yeah, okay, that's what it is. Yeah, this formula. I don't know if y'all remember this formula right here. Ft is equal to P times 1 plus the rate raised to the T. I know it in like time value money and some other things, but that's what this is. So this 13.6% is compounded. That's a lot. That's a lot. Anyway, go back. Oh my gosh, why is this so bright? All of a sudden. Oh, Minneapolis. I was way off. I was over here thinking Florida. My bad. So you're in the Midwest. I've never been out there. I'm talking about to like Minneapolis. I don't even know. Is that Minnesota? I've never been to that state. I've been to Illinois and wherever St. Louis is. Whatever that state that is. Missouri. I've been to Missouri. And I don't know if Pennsylvania is considered. I don't know if Pennsylvania is considered that area, but I've been out there. Okay. So just as a nation that does not produce manufactured products cannot maintain an industrial base it needs for national security, neither can a nation long survive if it cannot produce its own food. Presidential Policy Directive 21 of February 12, 2013, Critical Infrastructure Security and Resilience, designates food and agriculture as a critical infrastructure sector because it's one of the sectors considered so vital to the United States that its incapacity or destruction. I don't know if I'm sorry. Okay, this right here. Okay, it's incapacity or destruction. I was like, that's weird. Will have debilitating impact on security, national economic security, national public health or safety, or a combination of those matters. Furthermore, when I left office, the United States had a trade surplus in agricultural products, but today that surplus has vanished, eviscerated by a slew of new non-tariff barriers imposed by our trading partners. It has been replaced by a projected $49 billion annual agricultural trade deficit. For these reasons, I hereby declare an order. Wait, before I even get into that, this almost seems like the first argument is that food is critical to the United States. And then the second argument is saying that we were getting more food essentially, right? That's basically what that means to me. Is that for every piece of food that we sent back, we got more back. You know, look at it that way. Every unit of food, we get more back. We can reduce the trade deficit here by not trading food. Right? Or am I wrong here? I feel like I'm right on this one. If food is important, why not not import the food? Or I'm sorry, why not export the food and just keep it for ourselves? We don't need a surplus of food. We have a surplus, which is how we're able to trade it. I don't know. Maybe I don't understand, but let's see. For these reasons, I hereby declare an order. Section 1, national emergency. As a president of the United States, my highest duty is ensuring the national and economic security of the country and its citizens. Okay. I have declared a national emergency arising from conditions reflected in large and persistent annual U.S. good trade deficits, which have grown by over 40% in the past 5 years alone. God damn. God. Reaching 1.2 trillion in 2024. This trade deficit reflects asymmetries in trade relationships that have contributed to the atrophy of domestic production capacity, especially that of U.S. manufacturing and defense industrial base. These asymmetries also impact U.S. producers' ability to export and consequently their incentives to produce. Specifically, such asymmetry includes not only non-reciprocal differences in tariff rates among foreign trading partners, but also extensive use of non-tariff barriers by foreign trading partners, which reduce the competitiveness of U.S. exports while artificially enhancing the competitiveness of their own goods. These non-tariff barriers include technical barriers to trade, non-scientific sanitary and phytosanitary rules, inadequate intellectual property production or protections. I think I've already read this. This was above. So it's just a repeat of what we saw. E.g. wage suppression, weak labor, environmental and other regulatory standards and protections, and corruption. These non-tariff barriers give rise to significant imbalances even when the United States and a trading partner have comparable tariff rates. Okay. I see. Yeah, I see where he's coming from here. That I can't dispute it, really. The cumulative effect of these imbalances has been the transfer of resources from domestic producers to foreign firms, reducing opportunities for domestic manufacturers to expand and, in turn, leading to lost manufacturing jobs, diminished manufacturing capacity, and an atrophied industrial base, including in the defense industrial sector. This has been brought up several times. It's hard for me not to read into this when it's brought up so many times. But the only reason why this would really matter is if we think that we're about to become engaged in a hot conflict. Now, I do know that we have this idea, I don't know if it's a philosophy or this way of thinking that the best defense is to basically just have more weapons. Just make it. It's kind of like the porcupine strategy that Europe and America are using, or NATO, I should say NATO, are using for Ukraine. It's the same strategy that they're kind of doing for Taiwan, where it's just like, oh, let's just arm them to the hilt, and that will be. And maybe that's true. I don't know, but this seems to be indicating that maybe we're heading towards a war, not just a trade war. We did have a country say that they're ready for any type of war with the United States, and any normally implies a kinetic war, not just, the information war, which has been going on for decades, or the trade war, which has been going on for almost a decade, or maybe a little bit longer. The culture wars, but I don't know if they're able to compete with that one. Anyway, let's keep going. At the same time, foreign firms are better positioned to scale production, reinvest in innovation, and compete in the global economy, to the detriment of the U.S. economic and national security. The absence of sufficient domestic manufacturing capacity in certain critical and advanced industrial sectors, another outcome of the large and persistent annual U.S. goods trade deficit, also compromises U.S. economic and national security by rendering the U.S. economy less resilient to supply chain disruption. Finally, the large persistent annual U.S. goods trade deficit and the concomitant, I don't know what that is. I had to look this word up. I don't know what this word means. Is it not gonna let me look? Okay, fine. We'll pull up in my dictionary, which I don't have installed, so we'll just use this dictionary. Naturally, okay. So something that just comes with, okay. And it's spelled concomitant. I'm sorry, it's pronounced concomitant. All right, loss of industrial capacity, have compromised military readiness. This vulnerability can be redressed through swift corrective action to rebalance the flow of imports into the United States. Such such impact upon military readiness in our national security postures is especially acute with the recent rise in armed conflicts abroad. I call upon the public and private sector to make the efforts necessary to strengthen the international economic positions of the United States. Section 2, reciprocal tariff policy. It is the policy of the United States to rebalance global trade flows by imposing an additional ad valorem duty on all imports from all trading partners, except as otherwise provided herein. The additional ad valorem duty on all imports from all trading partners shall start at 10%, and shortly thereafter, the additional ad valorem duty shall increase for trading partners enumerated in Annex 1 to this order at the rate set forth in Annex 1 to this order. These additional ad valorem duties shall apply until such time as I determine that the underlying conditions described above are satisfied, resolved, or mitigated. I'll pull this up in a separate thing. Okay, Section 3, implementation. A, except as otherwise provided in this order, all articles imported into the customs territory of the United States shall be consistent with law, subject to an additional ad valorem rate of duty of 10%. Such rates of duty shall apply with respect to goods entered for consumption or withdrawn from warehouse for consumption or after 12:01 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, April 5th. Oh, that's tomorrow. Hold on. No, that's in a... Wait, what's today? Yeah, that's tomorrow. Okay. All right, that's tomorrow. Okay. Except that goods loaded onto... Okay. On or after 12:01 Eastern Daylight Time on April 5th, 2025, except that goods loaded onto a vessel at the port of loading and in transit on the final mode of transit before 12:01 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time on April 5th and entered for consumption or withdrawn from warehouse for consumption after 12:01 Eastern. So basically, and someone correct me if I'm reading this wrong, if the ship left where it was loaded from if it leaves before tomorrow at 12:01, then you're good. So if it takes 2 or 3 weeks to get here, it's fine. You won't pay the duty. But if it leaves at 12:02 from the port, or like when it's loaded or whatever, 12:02 from the port, I'm using China for instance, is subject to this. That's what I'm thinking right now. And I may be wrong, but y'all are here reading it with me, so let me know if that's the case. Oh, and while I'm doing this, let me go ahead and pull up, oops. Go ahead and put this in this thing right here. Because we're going to listen to the podcasting too. And let me go ahead and only select this. I'll delete that. Okay. So that way it'll be ready in a bit. There is no B. Oh, wait, this is the same thing. Okay. All right. Furthermore, except as otherwise provided in this order, at 12:01, man, it's hard for me to read this. 12:01 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time on April 9th, 2025, all articles from trading partners enumerated in Annex 1 to this order imported into customs territory, the United States shall be consistent with law, subject to the country-specific ad valorem rates of duty specified in Annex 1 to this order. Such rates of duty shall apply with respect to goods entered for consumption or withdrawn from warehouse for consumption on or after 12:01 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time on April 9th. Except that goods loaded into a vessel at the port of loading and transit on the final mode of transit before 12:01 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time on April 9th, 2025, and entered for consumption or withdrawn from warehouse for consumption after 12:01 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time on April 9th. All right, I think I remember it now. 12:01 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, April 9th. Got it. All right, ad valorem rates of duty set forth in the next one. Got it. These country-specific ad valorem rates of duty shall apply to all articles imported pursuant to the terms of all existing U.S. trade agreements, except as provided below. B, the following goods as set forth in Annex 2 to this order consistent with law shall not be subject to the ad valorem rates of duty under this order. One, all articles that are encompassed by 50 U.S. Code 1702B. Two, all articles and derivatives of steel and aluminum subject to the duties imposed pursuant to Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act of 1962 and proclaimed in Proclamation 9704 of March 8, 2018, adjusting imports of aluminum into the United States, as amended Proclamation 9705 of March 8, 2018, adjusting imports of steel into the United States, as amended in Proclamation 9980 of January 24, 2020, adjusting imports of derivative aluminum articles and derivative steel articles into the United States, as amended Proclamation 10895 of February 10th, 2025, that was this year, adjusting imports of aluminum into the United States. Aluminium, for any of you who like that word, it's pronounced both ways, by the way. There is no right way. And Proclamation 10896 of February 10th, 2025, adjusting imports. I think I just read that. Oh, I didn't. Okay. Adjusting imports of steel into the United States. 3, all automobiles and automotive parts subject to the additional duties imposed pursuant to Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act of 1962, as amended and proclaimed in Proclamation 10908 of March 26, 2025, adjusting imports of automobiles and automobile parts into the United States. 4, other products enumerated in Annex 2 to this order, including copper, pharmaceuticals, semiconductors, lumber articles, certified critical minerals, and energy products. 5, all articles from a trading partner subject to the rate set forth in Column 2 of the Harmonized Tariff Schedule of the United States. And 6, by the way, I've worked with that. It's people's full-time jobs to deal with the Harmonized Tariff Schedule anyway. And 6, all articles that may become subject to duties pursuant to future actions under Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act of 1962. I think it may be worth looking into these different acts at some point. Just saw a crazy thing on Twitter. It's recording of Earth from space right now. That's like crazy. Okay, C, the rates of duty established. By the way, just share it in Discord. Throw the link in Discord. The rates of duty explained. Why do I think this is explained? I don't know. I made this mistake twice. The rates of duty established by this order are in addition to any other duties, fees, taxes, exactions, or charges applicable to such imported articles, except as provided in subsections D and E of the sections below. Okay, let's go to D. With respect to articles from Canada, well, so Canada and Mexico, and I'm going to assume, Mexico. Yeah, Canada and Mexico are part of the NAFTA agreement, so that's a different set of rules, which is probably why they weren't included in that picture, that screenshot. Someone shared a screenshot and let me bring it up. Yeah, this screenshot here. Someone was like, oh, where's Canada? I didn't really get into it back then, but Canada's not here because they're under NAFTA. So it wouldn't make sense to include them. We have a different agreement with them and Mexico. All right, like, you know, I don't know if you realize that Mexico also wasn't on this list. Anyway, so let's with respect to articles from Canada, I have imposed additional duties on certain goods to address a national emergency resulting from the flow of illicit drugs across our northern border pursuant to Executive Order 14193 of February 1st, 2025, imposing duties to address the flow of illicit drugs across our northern border, as amended by Executive Order 14197 of February 3rd, 2025, progress on the situation of our northern border, and Executive Order 14231 of March 2nd, 2025, amendment to duties to address the flow of illicit drugs across our northern border. With respect to articles from Mexico, I've imposed additional duties on certain goods to address a national emergency resulting from the flow of illicit drugs and illegal migration across our southern border, pursuant to Executive Order 14194, February 1st, 2025, imposing duties to address the situation at our southern border, as amended by Executive Order 14198 of February 3rd, 2025, progress on the situation at our at our southern border, and Executive Order 14227 of March 2nd, 2025, amendments to duties to address the situation at our southern border. As a result of these border emergency tariff actions, all goods of Canada or Mexico under the terms of General Note 11 to the HTSUS. This is the harmonized tax tariff something system, whatever the US is the harmony system, including any treatment set forth in subchapter 23 of chapter 98 and subchapter 22 of chapter 99 of the HTSUS as related to the agreement between the United States of America, United Mexican States, and Canada. Wait, hold on. Oh, this is a new thing. I've never heard of this. Okay, between the United States of America, United Mexican States, and Canada, USMCA. Huh, I've never heard of that. United Mexican States. Is that the official name for Mexico? Holy shit. It is. UMS. I just learned something. Okay. I've only ever called it Mexico. I didn't know the official name was the United Mexican States. That's cool. I knew they had states. I do know that, but I just didn't know it was called the United Mexican States. Huh. That's cool. All right. Well, I learned something. All right. However, all goods of Canada or Mexico that do not qualify as originating under USMCA are presently subject to additional ad valorem duties of 25%, with energy or energy resources and potash imported from Canada and not qualifying as originating under USMCA, presently subject to a lower additional ad valorem duty of 10%. Okay. E. Any ad valorem rate of duty on articles imported from Canada or Mexico under the terms of this order shall not apply in addition to the ad valorem rate of duty specified by the existing orders described in subsection D. Okay, the one just above. If such orders identified in subsection D of this section are terminated or suspended, all items of Canada and Mexico that qualify as originating under USMCA shall not be subject to an additional ad valorem rate of duty, while articles not qualifying as originating under USMCA shall be subject to an ad valorem rates of duty of 12%. However, these ad valorem rates of duty on articles imported from Canada and Mexico shall not apply to energy or energy resources, to potash, or to an article eligible for duty-free treatment under USMCA. That is part of the component the component of an article substantially finished in the United States. So basically, if it's assembled here is what that basically tells me. Okay, F. More generally, the ad valorem rates of duty set forth in this order shall apply only to the non-U.S. content of the subject article, provided at least 20% of the value of the subject article is U.S. originating. Okay, so what this almost tells me is that if you have a car and some of the parts are produced in another place, you will only pay that duty so long as at least 20% of the thing is done here, the value of it. So, okay. I don't know if that's true. We'll get into that later, I guess. For the purposes of this subsection, U.S. content refers to the value of an article attributable to the components produced entirely or substantially transformed in the United States. U.S. Customs and Border Protection, to the extent permitted by law, is authorized to require the collection of such information and documentation regarding an imported article, including with the entry filing, as is necessary to enable CBP to ascertain and verify the value of the U.S. content of the article, as well as to ascertain and verify whether an article is substantially finished in the United States. I should have ordered my parts. I should order my Ducati parts today because they expensive as hell. I was looking at a Ducati Performance carbon fiber sprocket cover. It's like $260 for a little small piece of carbon fiber. I don't want to pay an additional $50 for that because it's already too expensive. So maybe I should do that stuff now, even though I have no job. Just get it now. All right, I think we're on G now, section G. How many sections are there? God dang, it's a lot. All right, almost there. Subject articles, except those eligible for admission under domestic status as defined in 19 CFR 146.43. What does CFR mean? I don't know what CFR means. 19 CFR. We'll use Google here. Still don't know what it is. All right, I'm gonna move forward. I don't need to know what it is right now. Okay, so and whatever that CFR 19 is, which are subject to the duties specified in section 2 of this order and are admitted into a foreign trade zone on or after 12:10 a.m. Eastern Daylight. Okay, all right, we got that. Must be admitted as privileged foreign status as defined in this thing right here. 41. I suppose I should look that up because I do want to include that in the notebook thing that I'm doing. Okay, so H, duty free, de minimis treatment under 19 U.S. Code 1321 A2 A B shall remain available for the articles described in subsection A of this section. When they say this section, are they talking about this section in here? This A? Is it this A or is it the A that's in this U.S. code thing, Majig? I'm going to assume it's in this. All right, duty-free de minimis treatment under 19 U.S. Code 1321A2C shall remain available for the articles described in the subsection A of this section until notification by the Secretary of Commerce to the President that the adequate systems are in place to fully and expeditiously process and collect duty revenue applicable pursuant to this subsection for articles otherwise eligible for de minimis treatment. After such notification, duty-free de minimis treatment under 19 U.S. Code 1321 A2C shall not be available for articles described in section A of this section. Oh, it's this section, so it must be the A that we read above. Okay. The executive order of April 2nd, 2025, further amendment to duties addressing the synthetic opioid supply chain in the People's Republic of China as applied to low-value imports. So this must be the fentanyl thing because they're doing the precursors to fentanyl there. They were shipping it to Mexico, but I guess they started shipping it to Canada since it's easier to get into here. Not really sure. Regarding low-value imports from China is not affected by this order, and all duties and fees with respect to covered articles shall be collected as required and detailed therein. J, to reduce the risk of transshipment and evasion, all ad valorem rates of duty imposed by this order or any successive orders with respect to articles of China shall apply equally to articles of both the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region and Macau. Oh, okay. I know what this is. This is to prevent China from just saying, all right, we'll just change the port of origin from here and we'll ship it through Hong Kong and Macau, because that was a known loophole. But a lot of people would do that. It'll just say, oh, we'll just go through Hong Kong or Macau. Hong Kong and Macau are very close to one another, by the way. I don't know if y'all are aware of that. K, in order to establish the duty rates described in this order, the HTSUS is modified. We'll go ahead and open that. As set forth in annexes to this order. Oh, okay. So this just must be the link to the HT. No, it's not. Wait, what link is this? Leave it to Safari to not tell you anything. Copy this link. Okay, so it's just okay. So it's not a link to what I was hoping it would be a link to. Okay. What, to Hong Kong or to Macau? Macau's economy hasn't been doing well with the crackdown of gambling and all that kind of stuff. It was a known way that certain party officials or rich people would get their money out of China. Basically, they would go to these casinos and they were able to convert their money to Hong Kong dollars or dollars, and they would get chips essentially. And you don't even care if you lose money because you're not really doing it for that. It was a way to get their money out of China. And they've been cracking down on that. So their economy is basically on the shambles because I think like most of their economy is based on gambling. It's a long history with Portugal and China. Like it's a bunch of things. I don't know if you know the history of Macau. Same thing with Hong Kong, but not Hong Kong is different. You know, it was British rule, became basically a trade hub because it was basically the entry into East Asia. You had the British rule, which helps the West, and you also had access to China and other markets. So it was a go-between. But now that the CCP has taken over Hong Kong, I'm pretty sure that very soon they're going to lose that favorite status. And they're already trying to they lost a lot of population, by the way. They lost a lot of skilled labor. They all fled to Australia, to the UK. Some of them went to Singapore, and a lot of them came here as well. And now they have these programs that are going on to get more mainland Chinese, specifically people who have specialized talents, very talented individuals who are on the mainland. They're now having programs trying to draw talent into Hong Kong. And there are still protests going on in Hong Kong, although they are illegal to a certain extent now. And those folks are basically, they don't want mainland labor coming in and taking their jobs, essentially. That's what it boils down to. Let's see here. So unless specifically noted herein, any prior presidential proclamation, executive order, or other presidential directive or guidance related to trade with foreign trading partners that is inconsistent with the direction in this order is hereby terminated, suspended, or modified to the extent necessary to give full effect to this order. So he's just saying basically, screw all them other things. This is the new land of the law. The new law of the land, I should say. Section 4, modification authority. A, the Secretary of Commerce and the United States Trade Representative, and in consultation with the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Treasury, the Secretary of Homeland Security, the Assistant to the President for Economic Policy, the Senior Counselor for Trade and Manufacturing, and the Assistant to the President for National Security Affairs shall recommend to me additional action, if necessary, if this action is not effective in resolving the emergency conditions described above, including the increase in the overall trade deficit or the recent expansion of non-reciprocal trade arrangements by U.S. trading partners in a manner that threatens the economic and national security interests of the United States. So it's basically saying it's a FAFO clause. So I'm gonna call this the FAFO clause. Should any trading partner retaliate? Oh, there's more of them. So all of Section 4. Section 4 is the FAFO section. B, should any trading partner retaliate against the United States in response to this action through import duties on U.S. exports or other measures, I may further modify the H2SUS to increase or expand in scope the duties imposed under this order to ensure the efficacy of this action. So this right here, he's leveraging the fact that America is by far the largest consumer of goods on earth. So other countries could be like, oh, we just won't sell to you, but I don't think they have the wealth to do that. Now, some countries are partnering up, banding together, but even then, let's be real, some of these countries, even when you add them together, have less wealth than one of our states. Just one. And not even one of our richest states. Just let that sink in. Think about California and Texas. Just think about what our GDPs are. And the amount of wealth, not just GDP, but the amount of wealth that's here. It's hard to compete. And then multiply that by 50. I do understand we have states like Mississippi, but they still rival certain countries, even though this is one of our poorest states. Just let that sink in. One of our poorest states is still richer than a lot of countries on Earth. It's kind of insane when you think about it. It's not fair, but hey, that's life, right? B, should any trading partner, I think I just read that. C, should any trading partner take significant steps to remedy non-reciprocal trade arrangements and align sufficiently with the United States on economic and national security matters, I may further modify the HTSUS to decrease or limit in scope the duties imposed under this order. This right here is this is a negotiation almost. This what this feels like. It's that here's where we're going to start at. This is the high water mark. And if you play along, you go along, get along, it'll go down. But if you want a FAFO, it's going to go up. D, should U.S. manufacturing capacity and output continue to worsen, I may further modify the H2SUS to increase duties under this order. Section 5, Implementation Authority. The Secretary of Commerce and the United States Trade Representative, in consultation with the Secretary of State, Secretary of Treasury, Secretary of Homeland Security, the Assistant to the President for Economic Policy, the Senior Counselor for Trade and Manufacturing, the Assistant to the President for National Security Affairs, and the Chair of International Trade Commissions are hereby authorized to employ all powers granted to the President by IEEPA as may be necessary to implement this order. Each executive department and agency shall take all appropriate measures within its authority to implement this order. Section 6. Reporting requirements. The United States Trade Representative, in consultation with the Secretary of State, Treasury, Commerce, Homeland Security, Assistant to the President for Economic Policy, Senior Counselor for Trade and Manufacturing, Assistant to the President for National Security Affairs, is hereby authorized to submit recurring and final reports to the Congress on the national emergency declared in this order, consistent with Section 401C of the NEA, U.S. Code 16, those codes. Okay. Section 7, General Provisions. Nothing in this order shall be construed to impair or otherwise affect the authority granted by law to an executive department, agency, or the head thereof, or the functions of the directors of the Office of Management and Budget relating to budgetary, administrative, and legislative proposals. This order shall be implemented consistent with applicable law and subject to the availability of appropriations. So there's a budget to this. Okay. This order is not intended to and does not create any right or benefit, substantive or procedural, enforceable at law, or in equity by any party against the United States, its departments, agencies, or entities, its officers, employees, or agents, or any other person. All right, there you go. That is the full read of this executive order. All right, let's look at these annexes. This one didn't pop up. Let's download it, see if anything pops up now. It's damaged. What? What the hell? Okay, so there's no Article 1. I am not reading through all these codes, but there are a lot. Corals, shells, cuttlebone, similar materials I'm working at. So all of these things. Are these the things that aren't? I guess these are the goods that... Actually, I forgot. But that's okay. I will put this in the thing. Add another source. This is 3. And then we'll do 2, which 1 doesn't work, so we'll try 2. Okay. All right, cool. So reciprocal trade and tariffs, White House. All right, there we go. So let's listen. I see you. Oh yeah, no worries. I was reading this for me too, because again, I do not trust any organization that has a vested interest in making sure that I am misinformed. So a lot of things, I don't really just believe it unless I see it from the source. So far, I still don't care. Even though I've read all this, I don't really care about the tariffs that much, but I do have opinions on it, at least now, because I've read it. And I understand where it's coming from. However, some of my primary concerns that I talked about when I first began this, they still remain. Like, some countries have a deficit because, well, they're poor. Like, they're poor countries. They are not capable of consuming at the same levels as we are. Also, culturally, they may not have needs for certain things that we need or that we consume. Think about like routers and switches. Like, if you have a country that's struggling to have consistent power, like what the hell are you gonna do with a switch and a router, which requires power? Anyway, let's listen to this.
Okay, so our listeners sent in some really interesting stuff this time.
Yeah.
One that really stood out was this White House memo from February of last year, all about reciprocal trade and tariffs.
Right.
So I thought for this deep dive, we could break down what exactly this push for reciprocal trade really means and what it could actually look like.
Sounds good.
So to start, can you kind of set the scene for us? Like, what's the issue the White House is trying to tackle with this memo?
Well, it all comes down to this idea of reciprocity in trade.
Gotcha.
The U.S. is saying, hey, we have this pretty open market, right?
Uh-huh.
We keep our tariffs low for the most part.
Yeah.
But it seems like a lot of our trading partners aren't exactly playing by the same rules.
Interesting.
They're not giving us the same level of access.
Oh,
and that's the problem this memo is trying to fix.
So that's what they mean by this lack of reciprocity.
Exactly.
Can you unpack that a little more?
So in a nutshell, reciprocal trade is the idea that when two countries trade with each other, they should both have similar opportunities to sell their products in each other's markets.
Right, like a two-way street.
Precisely.
Makes sense.
And this memo is basically arguing that the U.S. isn't getting a fair shake.
Yeah.
They point out that the U.S. actually has lower average tariffs and fewer import restrictions than a lot of other big economies.
Oh, wow.
So their point is, we're doing our part by being open, but others aren't reciprocating.
And that's leading to problems for the U.S.
Right.
What kind of problems specifically?
Well, the memo connects this directly to the U.S. trade deficit in goods. If other countries make it hard for American-made products to get into their markets, but their goods can flow freely into the U.S., that creates an imbalance.
Makes sense.
And the memo really emphasizes that this isn't just some abstract economic issue.
Right.
It directly impacts American workers and industries.
Gotcha.
They say that our workers and industries bear the brunt of unfair practices and limited access to foreign markets.
So they're really making this a jobs issue.
Exactly.
Now, the memo lays out this thing called the Fair and Reciprocal Plan as the solution to all of this.
Right.
Can you explain how this plan is supposed to work?
So essentially, this plan is all about pushing back against what they see as non-reciprocal trade arrangements.
Okay.
The main idea is to come up with what they call the equivalent of a reciprocal tariff for each trading partner.
Equivalent of a reciprocal tariff?
Yeah.
How do they even figure that out?
Yeah. It's definitely complicated.
I bet.
The memo makes it clear that this is going to be a huge undertaking.
Yeah.
They want to look at every single U.S. trading partner.
Wow. Everyone.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's not just about traditional tariffs, right?
Right. It's about looking at everything that could be creating an imbalance.
So what are some of the specific things they're targeting?
So they lay out 5 main categories in the memo.
Okay. Hit me.
First up is the most obvious one, tariffs on U.S. products.
Right. The taxes other countries slap on our goods.
Exactly.
Makes sense that they'd want to address that.
So, yeah. Then they talk about unfair or discriminatory taxes.
Okay.
Specifically mentioning value-added taxes or VATs.
Now, I remember VATs coming up in past episodes.
Right.
It's basically a consumption tax that gets added at each stage of production.
Right. So instead of just taxing the final product, you tax the value added at each step along the way.
So the memo sees VATs as potentially problematic for reciprocal trade.
Yeah, it seems like they're concerned that VATs can sometimes distort the playing field, especially because VATs are often border adjustable.
Right, so exports are zero rated and imports get taxed.
Exactly, so that can give a bit of an advantage to domestic producers.
Interesting.
Next up, they talk about these things called non-tariff barriers.
Okay, so this is where things get a little more complicated, I imagine.
Yeah, this category is super broad.
Okay.
It covers basically any government policy or regulation that restricts trade.
Wow, so that could be a lot of stuff.
It really could.
What are some examples?
So they list things like specific import policies. sanitary and phytosanitary measures.
Those are the ones about food safety and plant and animal health, right?
Exactly. Then there are technical barriers to trade,
Okay.
government procurement practices, export subsidies,
Okay.
intellectual property protection, digital trade barriers.
So it's really a huge range of potential obstacles.
It really is.
Anything that makes it harder for U.S. businesses to compete.
Precisely.
So it's not just about tariffs anymore, it's about all these other behind-the-scenes rules.
Yeah, trade barriers have gotten much more sophisticated.
And what's the fourth category?
This one focuses on currency manipulation.
Ah, yes, that's a big one.
It is.
Countries devaluing their currency to give their exports a price advantage.
Exactly.
It's been a point of contention in trade talks for years.
Definitely.
And they also lump in mercantilist policies here.
Right.
Which is basically where a country tries to always export way more than it imports.
Right.
Often through government intervention.
Exactly.
And the last category.
It's kind of a catch-all.
Okay.
Basically, anything else the U.S. Trade Representative deems to be unfair.
So if they see something creating an unlevel playing field, even if it doesn't fit neatly into the other boxes,
Exactly.
they can consider it under this plan.
Right. It gives them a lot of leeway.
The memo talks about achieving comprehensive fairness and balance. It seems like they're really trying to be thorough here.
Absolutely.
They're looking at everything, not just what's written down in formal trade agreements.
Right. They want to consider the real-world impact of different practices.
Okay, so they've laid out all the problems.
Right.
And what they see as non-reciprocal practices.
Yep.
What's the actual plan of attack here?
So the next step is investigations. The Secretary of Commerce and the U.S. Trade Representative are going to launch investigations into all these issues.
So they're going to dig deep into the specifics of each trading relationship.
Exactly.
And these investigations are supposed to produce some kind of report, right?
Yeah, the goal is to come up with a report for the president that outlines specific recommendations for how to achieve reciprocal trade with each partner.
So for each country where they find problems,
Yeah.
they'll propose specific solutions.
Exactly.
Now, the memo also mentions the Office of Management and Budget, or OMB.
Right.
What's their role in all of this?
So the OMB is tasked with assessing the potential budgetary impact of all this.
Okay.
How much it's going to cost the government.
Right.
And also the impact on the public of any new information collection requirements.
Gotcha.
They have to submit their assessment to the president within 180 days of the memo being issued. That's a pretty tight timeline.
It is.
6 months to figure all that out.
Now, towards the end of the memo, there's a section on important considerations and caveats.
Right.
What are the key takeaways there?
Well, first they make it clear that this memo isn't trying to override any existing laws.
Okay, so it's meant to work within the existing legal framework.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
They also emphasize that any...
All right, I want to pause it here because as I was looking at that other document, I saw PRC pop up a few times. I refer to it as CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, but it's also, I mean, technically it's the People's Republic of China. At least that's the name that we have in English. And I don't know if anyone else noticed this. I'm sure other people did notice it. Hold on, is it not here? Maybe, yeah, it is here. Notice that country, China and Taiwan is there. What you don't see is Hong Kong or Macau. Now, in this document here, this specifically calls out PRC and then makes explicit mention of Hong Kong. And I wonder if Macau is in here as well. And Macau. But it doesn't mention is Taiwan. So this seems like an implicit recognition of Taiwan as an independent country, which, I mean, they have been operating as that, I mean, since I don't know if the Civil War has ever ended, but with the Republic of China, I don't even know if they consider themselves the Republic of China anymore. What is the official name of Taiwan now? What do they call themselves? It's the Republic of Taiwan, maybe, or is it still the Republic of China? Yeah, it still is Republic of China. I could also just go look at my passport to see what the stamp says. So yeah, they still have Republic of China. Maybe they should not call themselves Republic of China. Maybe it should just be like Republic of Taiwan or something to get China out of the name. Cause this right here seems to be a hiccup, right? Where, the PRC, they're like, no, there's only one official government of China. And if they both have China in the name, well, that's just a point of contention that maybe doesn't need to exist. Taiwan's pretty cool though. Yeah, well, I don't know if like what else are we gonna get from this. It's only 9 minutes, and there was a lot of content here. And hopefully, I don't know if you're still here, Casual, but this is why I was like, I don't really just want to have this thing read, because not reading anything. It's basically a summary, and it's not really, it's not really that detailed. So, you know, reading it is better in my opinion in that regard. Okay, so I don't think I want to get too much more into tariff stuff right now. But maybe in the future, you know, if y'all are interested in talking about this more, or just what are y'all thoughts so far on these tariffs? Like, you think that it's going to have the intended effect, or do you think that it's, you know, it's kind of like it's not going to really work out? I have my thoughts. I don't think that it's going to meet all of the goals that are set out in that document, specifically around manufacturing. Now, I have seen some news that certain companies are now going to start producing things here in America. I think I saw something with Porsche is going to produce a vehicle here. Car in America. Yeah, so, you know, that this may end up happening. I am going to say, like, straight up, it'll probably be one of the SUVs, because let's be real, most SUVs sell here in America. Like, we have the space for it. I would always prefer my 911 to be made in Germany. In fact, I would straight up not buy a certain vehicle if I know that it's being made here in America. I don't want my vehicle to be made in America. I'm sorry if you are a manufacturer, if you work in a factory, I don't want your hands touching my vehicle. I want German hands touching my vehicle, or Austrian hands, whoever they are. I don't know. I don't know the difference, but I want their hands and their machines making my vehicle. Like my G63, I don't want that made here in America. I want it to come from over there. I want to take a journey across the ocean like my ancestors did. That's the only way that it's going to be right for me. It needs to come across from there. I don't want my Leica camera, if I ever get one, I don't want my Leica camera to be made here in America. I actually like the fact that it is made in Germany. In fact, there are certain goods that I purchase specifically because it's not made here in America. Not because I can't find it here in America. I just don't want it to be made here in America. Now, there are other goods that's like, I do actually want them to be made in America. And in those cases, you know, it sucks that I can't in certain regards. Now, fortunately, I've done a really good job of making sure that a lot of the things that I have, also a lot of the things that I have are made in America. Most of my tech aren't made in America. Most of that is made in China or Japan, and in some cases Thailand. But and I guess I also have other items that I don't know if you consider it tech, but like some of my headphones, for instance, or speakers and all that kind of stuff, made in France. And I prefer that. I don't want my Focal headphones to be made here. Just like I don't want my Balenciaga stuff that I own. I want that to be made over there in Europe, wherever they are. I don't want that made here. But there are certain things like jeans. I would prefer them to be made here in America or Japan. One or the other. All right. Well, seems like it's mostly just me here. So I'm gonna let y'all go. I know it's late. If you made it this far, I appreciate it. Let me know what you think in the comments. Give this video a like, and I'll see y'all in the future. Peace.